Welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. I am Shawn Ennis, and joined with me as always, David Soden, and a new guest we have today, Dr. Lance Parker. And Lance is going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, which is around increasing the competency and capabilities of our management teams. One of the challenges that we have regularly talked about during AI is having better management and understanding of this technology so that it's done the right way. So, Lance, can you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your book? Lance, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Excellent. Can you introduce yourself and your book?
Oh, definitely. So, as he said, I'm Lance Parker. I have a book coming out called The Road to Leadership. This book is about the concepts of psychological development when it comes to psychological safety or advancement with leaders. And the one thing that I wanted to make sure I did when I wrote this book, when I was developing the framework behind it, I wanted to make sure I hit three audiences. I think sometimes when we get a book, it's only for executives, it's only for faith-based, or it's only for academics. But you have to have that perfect niche, I would like to say, where you hit all three audiences at one time. And so it has a lot of academic rigor. It has the faith base when it comes to Christianity, and it also has a lot of reflection where you can apply your real life to what took place by what you're reading and reflect on that and apply those best practices from a mental health aspect to your own life and your own leadership toolkit, as I like to say. So I'm going to say some things that probably some individuals don't understand, like the leadership toolkit or a psychological framework models and things such as that. And I'll explain those as we continue to talk. But the leadership toolkit is something that you have in your personal bandwidth as a leader that you use to advance yourself in hard times. So, for example, if I'm a leader and I'm being tasked with advancing metrics or advancing financial sustainability in the organization, how do I do that? Well, I got to go to my leadership toolkit, because that's not going to be something I can just pull and develop. I have to have some type of strategic framework to make that happen. So you have to have some type of tools that you use as a leader to do that, and galvanizing the troops as well. So that book really focuses on that, but it really focuses on the internal processes us as leaders that we struggle with, like the depression that we go through, the anxiety, the struggles we have with conflict, the childhood wounds that we still haven't healed from. So we bring those into the workplace. Sometimes we have executives who lead Fortune 500 companies, or we have executives or senior vice presidents who are the head or the chair of the board of an organization and still have tantrums like they're five. Because they're not getting their way.
I've never experienced that ever.
It's still not getting their way. Or we have those who may isolate and just, okay, I'm going to cut everybody off. I'm not going to talk to you for 5 or 6 weeks. Well, that's not good leadership, because your team needs to have some type of open door policy to help you. But we still have to go back to that initial trauma, that initial pain that we have not healed from. So that's what that book is about. I've been in healthcare for over a decade. I've been working with the underserved population, advancing programs, creating programs, working with elected officials, working with higher education institutions to create access to care and, have sustainable and equitable outcomes when it comes to that, quality care outcomes. But I really want to write this book because I've seen it in the boardrooms. I've seen it in the elected officials' offices. I've seen it when it comes to the funders who provide the grants for these programs. And I'm just like, man, we have to do something where we can get to a place where we can just lead from a peaceful place. But peace comes from within, and that's where it happens first.
I have witnessed a lot of these things firsthand. I have 3 companies that I'm immediately thinking of that I've dealt with, and one of them was a Fortune 500. Others were more in the SMB space. For me personally, I haven't had the distinct displeasure of dealing with it too much at the enterprise level. But I think this is, at least in my experience, and Shawn, maybe you can reflect back on your workplace experience. Definitely see this more in the medium or SMB market, just because they're not used to running large companies, and they always seem to have a problem going from the small to the large, or from small to medium, or even medium to enterprise. And this is when all these skeletons rattle in the closet and start to come out. Like, all of your weaknesses as a leader really start to show as you scale your business and scale and grow. And if you don't have people to take the reins or save you, so to speak. And unfortunately, those people usually wind up leaving as a result of the pressure because they're tired of, pulling people out of the fire, so to speak. So, Shawn, maybe you could speak a little bit about the experience, and then Lance, back to you on, when Shawn's there talking about, how do you navigate that when, if you have an engagement with people, how do you walk folks through this or out of this?
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I've been in all levels of business, Fortune 500 down to solo founder, and almost every step in between. Not to mention, my background has always been consulting on different various sized companies as well. So I see the limitations. People ask me, why isn't my business growing? And it's really hard to tell them it's because of your childhood trauma. But it's true. The problem is, I don't know how many really great founders drive people away with poor communication skills and lying. One of the biggest startups in recent times is Sam Altman, and he has definitely a reputation, right? People ask, how do these people succeed? Well, they succeed on the backs of their people, and a lot of times you see them fall or fail, and a lot of people have this problem that they don't really see themselves accurately, and they're not really good on taking input or feedback from people trying to help them. So I know my personal experience has been running into a wide variety of people. I am quite sure I am one of them, and I think it behooves our audience to look in the mirror and recognize that if you go to multiple places and the same things keep happening, it's probably because it's you. So I really call out to you, Lance. What is the first step that an individual can take to be more aware of this? What is the best thing a direct report can do for a manager to help them understand this as well without being threatening?
Woo, that is a question. Because a direct report would have to have some level of understanding of what their leader is going through, and have some level of understanding of who their leader truly is, from a mental health and behavioral health aspect, right? So one thing I like to say, and I was on a previous podcast and we had this conversation. It was awesome, right? But the concept of trust, the difficulty of giving trust, a lot of leaders who have childhood trauma or have trauma bonds or bondage or just issues from early life, they have issues trusting others to follow through. So one thing I always tell subordinates of leaders like that is, okay, one thing that you have to learn is that micromanaging is something that it's compulsiveness, because they want to have this essence of control. If they don't have control, they don't understand what the outcome is going to be, and they don't trust the outcome is going to be in their favor because it hasn't been so many times in their life. So what you have to do is trust yourself, because you end up losing yourself trying to overcompensate for the leader who is not trusting you and micromanaging you. You'll start to second guess your decisions, second guess your reports, start second guess your time card. You may, did I clock in? I think I clocked in. Hold on, was I right on time? Was I fit? You start second guessing yourself. You have to have what I like to call be grounded in you when you have leaders such as that. But a leader who operates like that, I'm going to say it. Do something like I like to call do an anonymous assessment of you. Give your staff a survey, and I've done this with. I recently done this at an organization in Southern California. I'm not going to say their name, but I did this. We conducted a survey where we only asked 10 questions. You got about 7 quantitative, and then about maybe 3 or 4 quantitative where they're open-ended, or qualitative where they're open-ended, and make it anonymous, but make it about you as the leader. You will be surprised of the feedback you will get. And when we did that, the leader was shocked, because they just thought, hey man, we've been hitting these metrics, man. Our budget is 5% every month. We're increased return of investment. We're doing it. And when he got that thing back, he was like, these people do not like me. They can't. One person said this. Oh my God. And I said, I said, so what do you think is the reason why they have this perception of you? Because it's a perception. You have a different perception than they have a perception. And you're kind of caught off guard by the perception they have of you. Why is that? And didn't have any question. I don't know. I mean, but we're being successful. I said success does not mean sustainability when it comes to culture at an organization.
Just out of curiosity, on your assessments, do you have like the output of that assessment that you do? Does it break down, like, what's the word, archetypes that kind of put them in a box and just say your personality or your leadership style or your the skeletons in your closet match A, B, C, D profile or whatever, and then kind of guide them along the way to like nirvana?
No, what I like to do. So what I like to do, I like to go through it with them so they can see it, and then we do a data analysis. And then what we also do, I like to go through. Okay, then I want you to do a survey. I want you to do a personality test, and then we're going to do a cross analysis with the data in which we got. Then that's going to give us your leadership style. So we're going to see what type of leader we truly are based off this data which we just extrapolated from the people in which you govern. And so when they see that, it's shocking, and it's shocking. They're very shocked. I was almost said what somebody was going to say, but we probably had to bleep that
out. Well, I can only imagine, because I know from my own personal experience, staring at the mirror is not always a great activity that builds confidence. And in business today, especially the challenges that middle management are having and experiencing today, there's a lot of challenges. So, when it comes to how do you go through this process and maintain your confidence?
One thing I think that is important to say, and this is a sidebar, I believe the statistic says 85% of the world operates in imposter syndrome when it comes to leadership. And so if we have 85% of C-suite executive leadership operating with a mask, then how can those who they lead truly understand who they are? How can you have sustainable measures and sustainable outcomes within the organization in which you govern if you're not being your true authentic self? But a part of that is, like I said, I go back to the trust aspect of it. If I don't trust me, how can I trust those who I govern? Because I know within me, I'm giving you something that's not real. I'm coming here being manipulative. I'm lying to you. I'm not giving you the true aspects for you to learn and grow within your position because I want to keep you plateaued for my own insecurities. So therefore, how can I truly make this organization be sustainable when I myself am not sustained within my own identity? So to answer your question, how can someone move in those aspects, or how can someone, I think you said grow, correct?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, how can somebody get to the point where they can grow but keep their confidence? Because you just said shocked, right? And to me, that should be the most people, that shocked nature will erode their confidence. And one thing that I know C-suite needs to have, and you kind of alluded to it, even if it's a mask, it needs to be confidence.
psychological safety. That's how you grow.
Sounds like
And that's
Hollywood
easy.
just picked up a bunch of a new casting cohort. Because if everybody's showing up to work with imposter syndrome, feeling like they're playing the part, they're obviously good actors because they're not being their true self. So I'm just wondering why we don't see more new faces in Hollywood then.
Well, I think a lot of times a lot of these individuals don't understand that they are operating in imposter syndrome. They've wore this mask so long that they think this version that they are presenting is their true self. So they don't even know that when you get up every day, you
So what
put
you're
on.
saying is a lot of executives are deluded? Because I'll be honest with you, I've been in the room and I've heard the conversations that C-suite members have in front of the troops. And then I've heard them behind the scenes when the troops weren't supposed to be listening. And you could tell. And, it is quite obvious that they have a personal persona and then they have their real self. So they do have that mask. But I mean, the root is always like, how do you grow? Because a lot of people, when they're successful, they do not get the opportunities to grow. They are, they have a large amount of power. And their job is to sustain the business with that power. So growing outside of that can be very challenging. And one thing that I find is that CXOs have a problem with is ADHD, right? So they already have the problem of looking at things that aren't helping them. But when it comes down to how can they harness that growth, and you said psychological safety. So I'd love to hear more about that.
So psychological safety, in my opinion, this in my own walk, I believe that psychological safety is the conduit that they need in order to have some type of growth within their leadership. Because like you just said, they have that power, right? So if I have power and I my role is to sustain this organization, I'm viewed as something here as a leader. Everyone looks up at me. Everyone looking to see, okay, what's the next decision that's going to be made? What's coming down the pipe? Is this policy going to be the best? Is this going to, but it has to be psychological safety. You have to lead with some type of aspect of psychological safety. And so one thing that I would like to say that is very clear, okay? And I'm going to say a few things. In order for you to have psychological safety, I create this thing called the psychological paradox loop. About a year ago. It's called the psychological paradox loop. The psychological paradox loop I created. And what it talks about the internal and external pathways that a leader has to take in order to gravitate towards psychological safety and why. So I'm just going to give you just a few. And so the internal process is internal wounds get triggered. The leadership puts on a mask as a defensive mechanism. leadership pressure increases and exposes the adverse and inverse emotional responses. And then we have the fear of judgment of others within the organization based off the decisions in which they make. Then you have leaders either want to control more or withdraw based off how they are perceived. Then you have trust decreases based off the relationships these executives have with those in the organization. Then you have the psychological safety aspect. It declines because the sense of morality has now been impacted. But all that's internal. So if I have these internal processes, how can I grow? Well, here's the external things you need to grow. So it's called the psychological safety kit, the leadership regime. You have to have emotional regulation, empathic boundaries, cognitive reframing of conflict, resilience and self-compassion, value-based assertiveness, and collect emotional intelligence while you're building within your organization. Now, the one thing that's key, I always say this, the one thing that is key is reframing how you view conflict. A lot of times, leaders view conflict as something that's detrimental because someone speaks up against them. That's what psychological safety is anchored in. If your peers do not feel that it's safe to speak up or challenge the narrative in the organization, then how can the organization grow? Because you're operating in manipulation, you're operating in control, you're operating in lies, you're operating in this deceit because you want to have this ominous presence. But that's not you. Leaders have to understand the people who go to work every day, boots on the ground, are the face of an organization. It's not you. If I go to a convenience store right now or a market store, I'm not going to see the CEO. I'm not going to see the board chair. I'm going to see the cashier. But based on how they're being treated and how they're being seen and valued by the CEO, by the board chair, I'll be treated the same way.
Man, and again, this is why everybody knows culture is the most important thing for executives to do. And that's where that's the worst part of every business is the culture. So that dichotomy of everybody is very self-aware that this is what you're supposed to be doing, but people are seeing that that is not succeeding. And so we fall back into what are the metrics? What revenue are we generating? What is our customer retention rate? Where culture is the leading factor, right? Business metrics are a trailing factor. So, I mean, from my perspective, I think everybody in the audience has worked for a good boss and a bad boss, and I think your perspective kind of explains the impact of those. Now, let's go and reverse this because everybody has had a good boss and a bad boss. I know my personal experience because I haven't been trained with what you have, your book has said. But what I do is I look at the examples given to me by my experience and say, this is a good boss, this is what he was doing, so I'm going to copy what he was doing. That's what's made me a successful manager in the past because I've had over 50 bosses. I've had over 1,000 different customers, and every one of them is different. Every one of them treats you differently. In your parlance, everybody has the different traumas. Now, what is it? What is something that I can be doing, or David, or anybody out there who is a leader, to be able to take that next step forward? What is the easiest step forward to show an impact into what they're doing?
That's a good question. And for what I would say It is three things if you're a good leader, and you have to look at it from an organizational developmental intervention approach, right? So education, adaptation, organizational collaboration.
Mhm.
Those are the three things you can do as a leader to always ensure that you're growing as a leader, those that you govern are growing, and that the organizational life cycle is improving while everybody is growing at the same time. Now that's easier said than done, right? That sounds good. You can write it down, put it on paper. That, oh, this is great. But the work that has to be applied to that is difficult because it takes a level of vulnerability as a leader, and it takes a level of, okay, I don't know everything as a leader. That's what it also takes too. It takes that approach of I'm always going to be learning and growing within my role. And I'm also going to take a time to learn and grow from the individuals in which I govern as well. Because I've said this. We just mentioned we've had leaders who are good bosses, bad bosses. The ones that I had that's been good leaders, good mentors, they have sat down with me in my role and said, okay, what are we doing? What are you doing? Not to micromanage, because they want to know, okay, I am so far up, I'm not here every day. So what this individual sees helps me make better decisions when I want to go advance these programs, when I want to go ask for more grant funding money, when I want to go advance the budget or make reconstruction or restructure a division. This assists me in making that decision because I get to see something from the boots on the ground perspective and learn more within my role. But a lot of leaders don't want to do that because what? That takes a level of vulnerability, and it also takes a level of personality where you have to sit and be able to be seen as human. You're no longer seen as this mystique. This this person, oh, this is so and so. This is the board chair. This is the CEO. Oh my God, it's the senior vice president. No, now you're being seen as someone's human. And now they're having a level-headed conversation with you. Now well, this and this, that. And now you get to learn the ins and outs of things that probably you didn't even know that could advance you. But it takes education, adapting, and organizational collaboration. Those are the three things that leaders have to apply. And then you can create other organizational developmental interventions based off having those three foundational pillars as your anchor.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. There is a new strategy that executives are using called a skip level meeting. Are you familiar with this? And so those of you out there who are not going to be able to do that with your direct reports, if your boss does that, not only is this good for you to grow with, but there are new management techniques that are going to expose you if you do not do these things. And famously, the skip level meeting, where your boss sits down and does what you should be doing and talks to your people. And if you haven't been communicating well with them, it comes out immediately and you will be replaced. So, again, I think not only is this a good idea to grow, but in the day and age that we're in, if you are not growing and your people are not growing, that means you're not really a manager. So, you have a threat to your job at that level.
Can I just say something? Because what you just said, and I'm sorry, what you just said is so spot on. And I've said this, it makes me smile. If you are a leader and the people that you govern are not advancing in that organization, they're not growing. They've been in the same position for 20, 30 years. They have no type of growth, no type of new certifications, no type of new training. You have failed them as a leader. Because what have you done to advance them? And the world does not stop. We live in the age of AI. So you don't think we need to learn some new additives or some new skills to embed AI into, because it's going to be embedded anyway. So do you don't think we need to learn new skills surrounding that? new skills on how to advance that, how to use as a tool and not as a think bot for you, as a tool, not a think bot for you. I want to hang on that, because a lot of these executives are using AI to do their job for them and don't even know what they're doing. But you might have to bleep that out.
Yeah.
So that's this. Like,
no, I mean, Lance, what you are saying and what we're talking about is reflective of what is going on in the AI adoption. AI adoption is not working. Why? Is because management is trying to replace their people instead of growing them with software. It doesn't work. And then they have no way to help their direct reports leverage and grow with AI because they can't grow themselves. And what happens is a lot of the management roles are eliminated, because if you're shown to not be able to grow your people, you cannot roll out new technology and have people use it and absorb it in a valuable way. You no longer are a manager. You're getting a free paycheck. So I'm not saying that I'm not proclaiming that is true. I'm providing you the excuse of why these things are happening. So, David, what's your perspective on this?
So I'm going to play the role of one of your cohorts, Lance, or your customers. So for me personally, when I'm doing leadership, I try to help people as much as I can. But more importantly, I have this selfish thing where I want to be liked. I don't want to be this person that everybody hates. But at the same time, my aunt was famous at this. She kind of taught me how to do some of this. So she would rule with an iron fist, but she'd have a velvet glove over the top of it. And so, she was really hard at what she needed to do, but she also handled it with unique finesse so that it was both a soft and a very hard side where people knew boundaries. So for me personally, I try to make people genuinely feel like I care about them or what it is that, they're trying to do, like where it is that their outcome, because to me, that one-on-one, I guess maybe take a step back. Like everybody that I'm in my team with, and I have led teams as large as 80 at one point, and it was really, really almost impossible to hard to do it. But when you're talking about 8 to no more than 20, this is, I feel, manageable. The other thing is, and this is really my golden rule, to share the credit. Even if I did 90% of the work and the team did 10%, share the credit. And more importantly, if somebody screws up and does something bad, and especially if it's so bad that it gets me on the radar with my boss, I make it known that it's my fault. I'm taking the responsibility. I don't care that my team member screwed it up. I didn't have anything to do with it, but I'm responsible for that person. So by extension, it's my fault first. I'm going to take the majority of the hit, or try to take the majority of the hit. Unfortunately, even if it cost me my job, and I've been in situations like that where that has happened. And the other thing is making sure that people feel seen in a genuine way, not in this new modern fluff junk that people do to try to, blow smoke up your dress, so to speak. But, it really kind of, to me, goes back with your 85% statistical rule that, most people are just kind of really emotionally insecure about where they are. I think you can take that same metric at 85%, and they know when their leader or leadership is just wearing that mask. The leader might not know it, but I'm telling you, the people that answer to those leaders, they know it. 85% of them know it. The other 15%, I would say, are quiet quitting and don't care. They're signed out. They're checked out. That's kind of a lost cause. Unfortunately, it is what it is, probably because of the leadership problem. But at least for me, that's how I handle stuff and what I think is important. And by doing that, kind of everything else just kind of can fall in line, because then there's like effective leadership strategies about sound judgment and being accountable, but that goes through and through. And more importantly, I think the real good takeaway is that your words carry or match the actions that you're communicating, and that builds trust. And when you have that, then everything's unstoppable. Then as a manager and leader, then your job is to, and I have this book, I always forget who it is. John Maxwell. It's called The 360 Leader, and it's basically managing sideways. So my supervisors and his supervisors don't report to me, but by enveloping that type of leadership style, you try to manage and lead sideways as much as you can to leave some sort of a legacy, at least in the job that you had, and a footprint. So even if you're no longer there, you've planted some seeds that maybe can grow, and the organization is better for you being there. That's all I got to say about that.
Lance, really appreciate you coming out here today and help our leaders understand how to be better leaders. But before we close it up today, is there one thing you want to leave the audience with to be better leaders?
One thing my grandmother told me, and David, you hinted at it. She said, the seeds that you plant and the seeds that you water is the fruit in which you eat. So I've learned this. It took me many years to get to this point to learn it, though. But I've learned that if I'm going to plant a seed, then I also have to have the judgment and the stewardship to also water it. So I take this in the leadership approach. If I'm going to lead someone and I'm going to govern an entity or govern people, I'm going to plant some type of seed in you to help you grow. And if I'm going to help you grow, I have to water that seed as well, which is provide the resources to you to grow within that seed. So the fruit in which you have, you can eat and be blissful. That's all I have to say.
So thanks again, everybody. David, can you explain where we can get some more of Dr. Parker's content and engage it and talk to him?
Yep. I'm going to share a website link that I think everybody can see that's on the screen now. And I'll take it a step further and I'll bring that link up for you so you guys can at least become familiar with the look and the feel, so that you guys know that you landed on the right website. But Lance, you want to kind of talk folks through the website and what more information they can find? And then you said you had a book. I haven't personally spent a lot of time on your site, so I'm not sure if there's a link to get to the book or not. And if there's another link, tell the audience where that might live.
Awesome. So when you go to the website, you will see on the homepage, you will see our services where we offer leadership development, strategic planning, organizational effectiveness, change management, higher education solutions, where we partner with a higher education entity where we're going to provide you with some type of supporting you with your development and growth surrounding leadership and development. We also do healthcare consulting surrounding policy advancement and also policy writing, and also some financial supporting as well around policies as well. And then we have some statistics when it says why Sterling Consulting, which is SLC. It gives you some statistics where it says, 70% of organizations change initiatives fail to achieve their intended results. And if you go up and you hit the hamburger, I like to call it, you can see that about us, our story. Then you can go to meet the team where you see myself. We'll add some more team members there if we have some. You see our service packages, which I kind of just went over with you guys. And then you see our insights. Our insights is some of the scholarly material in which we have created. Like we have the SLE transformation model. That's a package in which we have where we do organizational diagnostic. We do psychological safety and mental health interventions. Then we educate the leadership. If this is in alignment with the identity of the organization, then we adapt policy and start an implementation process to best achieve whatever goal it is what you're seeking based off that organizational diagnostic. And then we have the Torchbearers Before Me, which is a academic scholarly written material that was published. It just gives us about authentic leadership, like who inspired you, the reflection that grows within, the feedback mechanisms, psychological safety, and the continuous learning that's needed. And then when you hit the hamburger again and you just go keep up with SLC, it just gives you some historical data where we have done health policy, we've done mental health for collegiate students at a Texas college, did a Anchoring Your Leadership event, and was a speaker at another event not too long ago for the National Association of Health Service Executives. And the very last one will be our upcoming podcast that we're going to have coming out soon, sometime in 2026 or early 2027. And when it comes to the book will not be released until October. It's already done. It's already written. We're going to probably upload it here on Amazon here soon, but we won't start marketing for the official release date until October. So right now we're just on the ground doing podcasts, doing speaking engagements surrounding that, because what we want to do a leadership cohort surrounding the book. And we have an event coming up in August. It's not on our website yet. It's called The Psychological Paradox, which is a teaser to what the Leadership Academy cohort will look like. I'm going to be very educational. I myself will be the one who will be educated in that. And my wife may jump in here and there. She's a doctor. She's a psychologist, so she may come in and provide some psychology interventions and best practices. But we are going to do this cohort, and I'm very excited about that because it's going to be I think it's going to be a doozy. So this teaser is going to be the interesting introduction of it, where we have virtual sessions, be a lot of scan the QR code, having roundtable conversations about the things that are being discussed, but it's going to also provide some insight to where some of these leaders are currently at and where they need to go.
Excellent. And I'm assuming that once the book is out and you upload it with the links to Amazon and all that, you'll have a link up here under your hamburger menu.
We sure will.
Excellent. All right. Well, great. All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for taking the time today to visit with Lance, myself, and Shawn. Maybe should have said that the other way around. But anyway, we're here every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So if you haven't checked this out, you can head over to the Transformation Leaders Podcast. You can connect with Shawn and I via LinkedIn. There's a form there. I think that's how Lance even reached out to us. Go ahead and fill out that form, and we can have you as a guest on the show as well. Well, that's all the time that we have for you today. Thank you for coming, everybody. Appreciate your time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.